Good morning. This is Morning Coffee with Jesus. I'm Rebecca, and today's topic is about roadblocks. So grab your coffee and your Bible because we're about to jump some obstacles. Welcome back. So today we're talking about roadblocks. I want you to ask yourself, what is standing in your way? Is it your finances, a person, maybe your confidence level? You're fearful, worrisome, anxious. What is your mountain? We all have something different that seems to kind of pop up or appear right at the moment when we least expect it or at the worst time possible, and we don't know how to get past that roadblock. So we just come to a standstill. We just stop right there and we just kind of look around, not knowing what to do and how to overcome it. Well, I want to share a story with you guys about something that I have had to overcome. I'm not a big fan of heights. It's not so much the being up high that I don't like, it's the possibility of falling. And as a mom, I want to encourage my kids to be brave. I don't want them to feel that they can't do something because they have a fear or because they're trying to analyze everything. So my son, he has a show and he calls it Adventures with Jaredon. So this past weekend we went to my husband's work event, and they were having a picnic, and they had like rock climbing and zip lining and all of these different adventure type things that you could do. Well, my son's 7, and I wasn't quite sure if he would zip line or not. So I just asked him. I said, "Son, do you want to zip line?" He's like, "Yeah, let's do it." We make our way over there. Well, the closer we started getting, he started getting a little uneasy feeling. He said, "I don't know if I can do this. It looks pretty high." I said, "It's not that high." He turns and looks at me and he's like, "I'll do it if you do it." I was like, "I do not want to do this." He said, "Mom, I need you to do this." I was like, "You don't have to have me to zip line. We can only go one at a time anyways." And he's like, "Mom, you need to go with me. You have to go with me or I can't do this." By this time, we'd already made it over to where they put the equipment on you and get you suited up. And the guy's like, "All right, who's going?" I was like, "Well, apparently we both are." I'm thinking, way to go, Becca, you are stuck doing this now. So we got geared up and we start going up the stairs. Well, it didn't look that high from the ground. When you're standing there looking up, you're like, "Oh no, that doesn't look very high at all." But the more we started climbing, the more we started going up the stairs, the more I realized this is pretty high, actually. Jaredon was right. I'm still trying to stay positive because I want Jaredon to be excited and I don't want him to get afraid. So once we got up to the very top and it came time for Jaredon to go, I kept telling him, because the longer we sat there in line, the more he was like, oh, I don't know. And trust me, I was thinking the exact same thing. And I'm like, "Son, just quote the scriptures. You can do all things through Christ who strengthens you. You can do this. It's not a big deal. No problem." And so the guy's like, "All right, it's your turn." So Jaredon gets up there and he goes and he is talking to the guy, and the guy's going over the procedure of how this is going to go down and all this stuff. So he climbs up on the stairs and the guy's like, "Go," and there he goes. I'm cheering him on. Woohoo, yeah, I was all excited for him. And then the guy turns and looks at me and he's like, "Your turn." I was like, "Okay, it's my turn." I definitely can't back down now because my 7-year-old just did that. I mean, I'm supposed to be the example here. One that he can look up to and be like, "No, Mom taught me how not to be fearful," and things like that. And in my mind, I'm like, "Oh man, why didn't he back out?" That's kind of where I was at. But he was brave. He did it. And so I walk over to the guy, and he said, I want you to go up those 3 steps so I can hook you up and everything. I heard what the guy said, but my body was not cooperating. I got up to about the 2nd step and froze. Like my brain was saying, you have 1 more step to go, but my legs would not raise up. They were just stuck. Like I couldn't bend them. So I ended up grabbing on to the pole that had the cables and stuff wrapped on it, and literally like pulled my leg up to the very top step. The guy started going over, okay, this is what you're going to do. You're going to sit back, and then once you raise your feet, then you're going to go. I was like, oh my gosh, because at this point, I'm just being able to look straight down, and I'm just like, wow, that is a long way down there. So I took a deep breath, and I was thinking, I don't want to do this at all. And clearly the guy could tell how much I did not want to do this, because he was like, you're going to be okay. I was like, yeah, I know. So then I was thinking, well, I guess the faster I raise my feet up, the faster this thing is going to be over with. So I took a real deep breath, and I was like, I can do this. And then I raised my feet up, and as I started zipping down over the water, I am screaming very loudly, and I'm saying, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Once I made it to the other side where Jaredon was, he was like, Mom, you screamed more than I did. I was like, thanks, son, but I did it. If I would have allowed fear to reign and win, then that could have spilled over to my son. If the whole time we're standing there in line and I'm going, oh yeah, I know, son, I don't really want to do this either. Maybe we shouldn't do this. He wouldn't have done something that he really wanted to do. Same thing with me. I could not allow fear to have the victory over me. Because if I would have done that, the next time fear presented itself to my son, he could have had the excuse to back out, because he could have been like, well, Mom was scared and she didn't do it, so I can do the same thing. And by doing that, that's letting the devil win and allowing fear to torment you, to not enjoy life. It's never okay to let the enemy win. I don't care how much your stomach hurts, or if your legs just don't want to move, make them. You fight through it all and say, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. There isn't a mountain too big. You are capable of overcoming, because greater is he who is in you than he that is in the world. This is how I have overcome a lot of things in my life. From when I was a little kid to a teenager to now. I continue to quote Philippians 4:13 and 2 Timothy 1:7. Now, if God says don't do that today, then don't do it. You have to make sure you're being obedient and not just disregarding God's voice. It's vital that you know God's voice and what it sounds like. That way, you don't give in to the lies and the deception of the devil. Matthew 17:20 says, He said to them, because of your little faith, for truly I say to you, if you have faith like a grain of a mustard seed, you shall say to this mountain, move from here to there, and it will move. And nothing will be impossible for you. Now, how do you see your circumstances? The situation that you're currently in, how do you see it? Do you see your situation as an obstacle that will defeat you, or as a course to endurance? James 1:2 says, count it all joy, my brothers, when you meet trials of various kinds. For you know that the testing of your faith produces steadfastness. And let steadfastness have its full effect, that you may be perfect and complete, lacking in nothing. This doesn't mean we're rejoicing because we're going through a bad time and a bad situation. It means we're rejoicing because we know God has made a way of escape for us, that God has a plan for our victory, that he's leading us through this. He's not making us go through it. The enemy is the one that comes to steal, kill, and destroy. He's the one that's putting things on you, not God. So we're not rejoicing for what the enemy is trying to attack you with. We're rejoicing for our victory because we know we are overcomers. Now, I also want you to think, what do you say about your situation? What's coming out of your mouth? How do you talk? I was listening to Terry Saville Foy, and she told an example from a book that she had read by James Clear, Atomic Habits. And it's about two individuals who are trying to resist smoking. One of them was offered a cigarette, and they responded with, "No thanks, I'm trying to quit." That response sounds good, right? Well, the problem is they still saw themselves as a smoker trying to overcome that situation. Well, the second person was also offered a cigarette, and their response was, "No thanks, I don't smoke." See, they saw themselves already delivered, even though it could have only been 2 hours since the last time they had smoked. See, when you know who you are, and you know who you want to be, you start talking that way and acting that way. If you want to be a millionaire, you have to have the mindset of a millionaire. You can't see yourself in lack, in poverty, barely getting by from paycheck to paycheck. You have to see yourself wealthy. You have to talk that way instead of saying, well, that check's gone. That's not how a millionaire talks or thinks. I know you're thinking, well, of course they can think that way. They're millionaires. They do have that money. They didn't start out that way. They had to believe they could achieve great things and then be willing to go after it. So I want you to ask yourself, what defines you? Who are you? We just watched a movie called Overcomer. It's an excellent movie. It will make you cry, so bring tissues. But it is a beautiful illustration of finding your identity. And it makes you really think about, how do you determine your identity and who you are? Majority of people, when they're asked, who are you, they respond with their job title, their degree, their status in a relationship, or being a parent. But if you stop and really think, if all of that was taken away, if you didn't have your job position, if you weren't this and you weren't that, who would you be then? What would you be left with? Would you feel unfulfilled? Would you think that you are nothing? See, all things here on the earth are temporary. They'll pass away. They don't last forever. Just like relationships. Once you get to a certain age, people pass away. So when you have a person as your identity, if you lose them, your identity has been stripped away. So knowing who you are and what happens after you leave this life is far more important than a disagreement, a falling out, a job position, or even a bad day. The enemy will come at you at all different ways and even try and candy coat it. But you have to look at what lies underneath it all. You don't have to be tricked and believe you are something you aren't. You are a child of God, and He loves you. Open your heart and let Him shine light in the darkness and start removing those roadblocks. Stay encouraged by the Word of God and speak words of life over yourself and your family. If you need prayer, I want you to reach out to me at morningcoffeewithjesus@hotmail.com or through social media. I am here for each and every one of you. Thank you guys for joining me, and I'll see you next week.